The conference room fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. 7 species sat around the curved table, their representatives watching Ambassador David Ross with expressions ranging from contempt to barely concealed hostility. The human stood alone on his side of the room, hands clasped behind his back, face neutral despite the accusations being hurled at him for the past 3 hours. High Commander Braxis of the Torvin leaned forward, his scaled features twisted into what passed for a sneer among his kind. Your refusal insults the Combine. We have given Earth generous terms. Surrender your outer colonies, submit to Combine oversight, and your homeworld will remain untouched. David remained motionless. Those colonies contain 15 million human citizens. They are not bargaining chips. They are whatever we decide they are, Braxis shot back. Humanity spreads like a disease across this sector. You build where you are not wanted. You interfere in matters beyond your understanding. The Combine offers you a chance to survive with dignity. By abandoning our people to your rule, David's voice stayed level professional. That is not dignity, that is cowardice. A Kellish representative, her crystalline body refracting light across the walls, made a sound like grinding glass. The human speaks of cowardice while hiding behind diplomacy. Your species talks and talks, yet never acts. You are weak, Ambassador. The galaxy knows this. David turned his gaze to her. Diplomacy is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is weakness, Braxis insisted, standing now to his full imposing height. The strong take what they desire, the weak negotiate for scraps. Humanity has always been weak. You wage no wars of conquest. You claim no tribute. You sit in your little corner of space and pretend you matter. We matter to our people, David replied quietly. Your people, Braxis laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Let me show you what your people mean to the Combine. He gestured and the holographic display changed. A planet appeared, green and blue, with orbital stations visible in high orbit. Frontier's Edge, one of humanity's newest colonies. David recognized it immediately. His daughter lived there with her family. This world is claimed by the Combine as of this moment, Braxis announced. Your people have 12 hours to evacuate. After that, we will demonstrate what happens to those who refuse our generous offers. David's jaw tightened. You cannot be serious. There are families there, children. Then evacuate them. Braxis smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Or do not. The choice is yours, Ambassador, but the Combine does not make empty threats. The other species around the table said nothing. Some looked uncomfortable, most looked away. None spoke in humanity's defense. David took a slow breath. If you attack that colony, you will regret it. Will we? Braxis seemed genuinely amused. And what will humanity do? File a complaint with the Galactic Council, send a strongly worded message. Your species has never shown the spine for real conflict. You are talkers, not fighters. We prefer peace, David said carefully. That does not mean we are incapable of war. Everyone is capable of war, human. The question is whether you can win one. Braxis turned to the other representatives. The Combine has decided. Let the galaxy witness what befalls those who defy us. The holographic display shifted again. This time it showed live footage. Combine warships dropping from faster than light travel above Frontier's Edge. The colony's defense stations activating, their weapons pitifully inadequate against the assembled fleet. David watched, his face carved from stone, as the bombardment began. They did not target military installations. They did not aim for the government centers or the spaceports. The Combine fleet fired on residential districts, on schools, on hospitals. The attacks were surgical, calculated to cause maximum civilian casualties while leaving infrastructure intact for future Combine occupation. David watched his daughter's neighborhood disappear in a flash of plasma fire. He watched the children's hospital where his grandson had been born collapse into rubble. He watched 40,000 lives end in the span of 20 minutes. The other species in the room shifted uncomfortably. The Kellish representative looked away from the display. Even some of the Combine members seemed disturbed by the brutality. Braxis, however, looked satisfied. "You see, Ambassador, this is strength. This is what happens to those who refuse the Combine. Tell your government, tell your military, tell every human in the galaxy that resistance is futile." David stood perfectly still. His face showed nothing. His voice, when he spoke, was eerily calm. "You have made a mistake." "Have I?" Braxis laughed again. "I think not. I think I have taught you a valuable lesson about your place in this galaxy." "No," David turned to face him directly. "You have taught me something far more important. You have taught me that the Combine understands only one language." "And what language is that?" David's eyes were cold, empty of the warmth they had carried into this meeting. "You want war, Commander Braxis. You want to demonstrate strength by murdering children. Then watch your worlds burn. Watch everything the Combine has built turn to ash. You think humanity is weak because we choose peace. You are about to learn why we choose peace." Braxis waved a dismissive hand. "Empty threats from a broken species." "Not threats, promises." David gathered his papers, moving with deliberate calm. "Humanity tried to avoid this. We negotiated in good faith. We offered compromise. We extended every courtesy. You responded by slaughtering our families." He walked toward the door, then paused. "The galaxy will remember this day, Commander. Not as the day the Combine showed its strength, but as the day you woke something that should have stayed sleeping." The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. The Combine representatives looked at each other, some uncertain now. Braxis, however, seemed unconcerned. He had no idea that he had just made the worst decision in Combine history. The Quiller monitoring station detected the anomaly first. For 18 days, human communications traffic had maintained its normal patterns. Trade vessels moved along established routes. Colony worlds transmitted their daily reports. Everything appeared routine. Then, in the span of 6 hours, it all stopped. Observer Talon studied the data feeds with growing concern. His species, the Quiller, had built their reputation on neutrality and careful observation. They watched the galaxy's conflicts from a distance, recording everything, judging nothing. But this silence from human space troubled him deeply. "Run the analysis again," he ordered his assistant. The younger Quiller complied, her tentacles dancing across the sensor controls. "The results are unchanged, Observer. Every human transmission has ceased. No colony reports, no trade chatter, no civilian communications. Even their entertainment broadcasts have gone dark." Talon's skin rippled with unease. "That is impossible. Humanity has hundreds of settlements, thousands of vessels. Some signal should penetrate." Yet none do. His assistant pulled up a tactical display. The last transmissions were all similar. "Return home immediately. Code 7 emergency. Report to mobilization centers." Mobilization. Talon felt a chill run through his body. For what purpose? No one answered because no one knew. The galaxy had watched the Combine's attack on Frontier's edge with varying degrees of horror and indifference. Most species expected humanity to surrender or perhaps file complaints with the Galactic Council. Some thought the humans might attempt a limited military response, a token show of force to save face. No one expected complete silence. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from across known space gathered to discuss the human situation. The Combine delegation, led by Braxis, seemed unconcerned. "They are broken," Braxis announced to the assembled chamber. "Humanity has withdrawn to lick its wounds. In time, they will accept Combine terms." But Counselor Varus of the Quiller was not convinced. "We should investigate. Send a diplomatic mission to Earth itself. Ensure that humanity has not suffered some catastrophic event." Several species agreed. Even those who had remained neutral during the Frontier's Edge incident seemed worried by the absolute communications blackout. A coalition vessel was prepared, crewed by neutral species, carrying ambassadors from a dozen worlds. They departed for Earth's solar system with messages of concern and offers of mediation. Talon volunteered to join them. Something about this situation felt profoundly wrong, and his instincts had kept the Quiller out of countless conflicts throughout their history. Those same instincts screamed at him now. The journey took 11 days. As they approached humanity's home system, the sensor operator called out in confusion. "I am reading massive energy signatures, thousands of them." "Specify," the ship's captain ordered. Shipyards, factories, industrial complexes, all operating at maximum capacity. The operator's voice rose in disbelief. "The entire asteroid belt has been converted to manufacturing facilities. I count over 15,000 vessels in various stages of construction." The ship entered Earth's orbit, and Talon finally understood his unease. The planet below had transformed. Every landmass glowed with industrial activity. Lights blazed across continents that had once been dark at night. The orbital space around Earth was crowded with military vessels, supply depots, and training stations. "This is impossible," the captain whispered. "This level of mobilization would take years." Unless they were already prepared, Talon realized. Unless they had plans in place just waiting for implementation. They watched in stunned silence as human civilization revealed itself. The peaceful traders and cautious diplomats had been a mask. Beneath that mask was something the galaxy had never fully understood. Earth was not a gentle world that had produced gentle people. It was a crucible of competition and conflict, and humanity had survived by becoming very, very good at organized violence. Civilian populations had transformed into military production workers. Factories that once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons and armor. Shipyards that built exploration vessels now assembled warships. And everywhere humans trained. They drilled, they practiced, they prepared. A message arrived from Earth's Planetary Defense Command. "Quiller vessel, state your purpose." The captain composed himself. "We come seeking diplomatic contact. The galaxy is concerned by your silence." "Tell the galaxy that humanity appreciates the concern." The human voice was flat, emotionless. "Tell them we are quite busy at the moment." "Busy with what?" There was a long pause. Then, teaching the Combine about consequences. Talon watched through the viewport as a massive fleet began to assemble near Earth's moon. Hundreds of warships, thousands of support craft, supply vessels loaded with enough munitions to level planets. The fleet organized itself with frightening efficiency, each ship moving into position with practiced precision. "How long have you been planning this?" Talon asked quietly. "Planning?" The human voice carried a hint of dark amusement. "We have contingency plans for every scenario, observer. Peaceful coexistence is our preference. But we are a species that spent 10,000 years fighting itself before we ever reached the stars. We learned to be ready for anything." The fleet began to move, not toward Combine space yet, but into holding positions around humanity's core worlds. More vessels joined them by the hour, streaming in from colonies and outposts across human territory. "You cannot win against the Combine," the captain said. "They control 70 systems. They have numerical superiority." "They have numbers," the human agreed. "We have something else." "What?" "Experience." The word hung in the air like a threat. The Combine conquers primitive species and squabbles over territory. Humanity spent millennia perfecting the art of total war. We destroyed entire civilizations on our own planet. We developed weapons that could end our species a dozen times over. We learned logistics, strategy, and tactics in conflicts that lasted generations. The Combine thinks they are warriors. They are about to learn the difference between soldiers and killers. The The Coalition vessel departed Earth's system carrying Talon's report. He wrote it carefully, knowing that his words might be the only warning the galaxy received. He described the mobilization, the industrial might, the cold determination he had witnessed in human eyes. He titled his report simply, "The Sleeping Predator Awakens." 3 days later, the first human battle groups entered Combine space. The war that followed would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what humanity truly was, and Braxis, watching his sensors light up with incoming human vessels, finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The Torvan defense grid surrounding their homeworld had never been breached. Massive weapons platforms orbited their planet in 3 concentric rings, each capable of reducing an attack fleet to debris. Braxis stood in the command center, watching the approaching human vessels with satisfaction. "Let them come," he said to his tactical officers. "They will learn that attacking the Torvan homeworld is suicide." The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. 1,200 vessels arranged in formations that made no tactical sense to Torvan strategists. Rather than concentrating for a strike at the defense grid, they scattered across the system like seeds in the wind. "Foolish," Braxis muttered. "They divide their forces, attack Pattern Delta, destroy them piece by piece." The Torvan fleet moved to engage, confident in their numerical advantage in this sector. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human vessels refused direct engagement. When Torvan ships closed to weapons range, the humans simply accelerated away, their engines somehow faster than intelligence reports had suggested. They led the Torvan fleet on a chase across the system, always staying just out of reach. "They run like cowards," a Torvan admiral growled. "Pursue and destroy." But the humans were not running, they were positioning. Admiral Patricia Hayes watched the tactical display from her flagship, the Retribution. Every Torvan vessel was exactly where her strategists had predicted they would be. Centuries of human warfare had taught valuable lessons about psychology and tactics. Make the enemy think they are winning, and they will follow you anywhere. "All vessels," she transmitted, "execute Protocol Strangler." The scattered human ships suddenly changed vectors. They ignored the Torvan warships entirely and made for the planet's orbital infrastructure. Communication satellites, power relay stations, data hubs, weather control systems. Everything that made modern civilization function became a target. The Torvan commanders reacted with confusion. They attack civilians. They ignore our military. But the humans were not attacking civilians. They were doing something far more calculated. Every shot was precisely aimed at critical infrastructure. No residential areas were touched. No civilian vessels fired upon. Only the systems that allowed the Torvan military to function as a coordinated force. Within 2 hours, the Torvan homeworld went dark. Communication between ground forces and orbital defenses ceased. Weather satellites stopped transmitting. Power grids managing the defense platforms failed. The mighty Torvan military machine suddenly found itself blind, deaf, and unable to coordinate. Braxis stared at his displays in growing horror as system after system showed red. How did they know? How did they map our infrastructure so precisely? A junior officer pulled up intelligence reports. "Commander, there are records here of human trade vessels visiting our system over the past 5 years. Merchant ships, civilian transports." Spies, Braxis realized. They were mapping us the entire time. Patricia Hayes would have smiled if the situation had been less grim. Humanity had learned long ago that information was as deadly as any weapon. While the Torvan had seen harmless traders, human intelligence services had been cataloging every system, every relay, every critical node. They had mapped the Torvan civilization down to its individual circuits. The second phase began immediately. Human landing craft descended toward the planet, but they carried no invasion force. Instead, teams of engineers and technical specialists disembarked at key locations. They moved with purpose, ignoring Torvan military bases in favor of manufacturing centers and research facilities. Ground forces attempted to resist, but without orbital support or communication networks, their response was scattered and ineffective. Human teams would appear, disable a factory complex, and vanish before organized resistance could arrive. A captured Torvan officer was brought before Patricia on the third day. He expected interrogation, perhaps torture. Instead, she offered him water and a seat. "Why?" he demanded. "Why destroy our factories? Why target our infrastructure? If you want to conquer us, take our military bases." Patricia looked at him with something like pity. "We do not want to conquer you. We want to ensure you can never threaten us again. By destroying our industry. By removing your ability to wage war," she corrected. "Every weapons factory you possess will be dismantled. Every shipyard will be repurposed for civilian use. Every research facility working on military applications will be converted or demolished." The officer's scales paled. "That is our entire economy, our way of life." "Your way of life involved murdering children to prove a point," Patricia said coldly. "That way of life ends today. You will rebuild. You will recover. But you will do so without the capacity to wage aggressive war. The Combine will never accept this. The Combine will have no choice." Patricia stood, dismissing him. "Tell your commander that humanity did not want this war. We offered peace. We extended diplomacy. You responded by slaughtering our families. Now you learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness." By the fourth day, the Torvan military command was ready to discuss surrender terms. Braxis himself requested a meeting with the human admiral. He expected negotiations, perhaps harsh terms but survivable ones. Patricia's terms were simple and non-negotiable: complete dismantlement of military industry, human observers stationed on all Torvan worlds, reparations paid to the families of Frontier's Edge victims, and a public acknowledgement of war crimes committed against humanity. "And if we refuse?" Braxis asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we move to the next Combine world and repeat this process," Patricia replied. "We will dismantle every single member of your coalition, one species at a time, until the Combine ceases to exist as a military threat. You cannot sustain this. The galaxy will turn against you." Patricia's expression remained cold. "The galaxy remained silent while you murdered our children. Their opinion concerns us very little right now." Braxis signed the surrender documents that evening. He had no choice. The Torvan homeworld was crippled, its military scattered, its industrial base in ruins. And the worst part was that the humans had accomplished it all with minimal casualties on both sides. They had not sought to kill Torvan people. They had sought to kill the Torvan capacity for war. It was surgical, precise, terrifying. As the human fleet prepared to move to the next Combine system, Patricia recorded a message for broadcast across the galaxy. "Humanity did not seek this conflict. We were forced into it by an act of barbarism. Let this serve as a lesson to any species that considers attacking human civilians. We will not respond with rage. We will respond with precision. We will not seek vengeance. We will seek permanent solutions. And we will not stop until we are satisfied that the threat has been permanently neutralized." The message ended, and the human fleet jumped to the next system. The Combine was beginning to understand exactly what they had unleashed. Dr. Amy Walsh never imagined she would spend her career explaining human nature to prisoners of war. As a xenobiologist, she had devoted her life to understanding alien species, their cultures, their evolutionary paths. Now she stood in a converted conference room on the occupied Kellish core world, facing 36 captured Combine officers. They looked at her with expressions ranging from hatred to confusion. The Kellish representative from the initial conference was among them, her crystalline body dimmed from lack of proper nutrition. Amy activated a holographic display. I am going to explain something to you, not because I expect sympathy, but because you need to understand what you are facing. Earth appeared in the projection, rotating slowly. This is humanity's homeworld. It does not look particularly dangerous, does it? The officers said nothing. Amy continued. Let me tell you about Earth. 70% of the surface is covered in water that will kill you if you drink it. The atmosphere experiences violent storms that can level cities. Tectonic plates shift beneath the surface, causing earthquakes that bury thousands. The planet orbits a star that periodically bombards the surface with radiation. She zoomed in on different regions. This area experiences temperatures that will freeze you solid in minutes. This region reaches temperatures that will cook you alive. This jungle contains more species of deadly predators per square kilometer than any documented world in the galaxy. This ocean has creatures that can swallow your landing craft whole. A Torvan officer interrupted. Many worlds are hostile. This proves nothing. Amy smiled without warmth. You are correct. Many worlds are hostile, but most species that evolve on hostile worlds develop one strategy for survival: thick armor, venomous defenses, camouflage, some form of specialization. She paused. Humans developed something different. We developed adaptability. The display shifted to show human evolutionary history. We did not evolve with armor plating. Our ancestors were prey animals, hunted by creatures stronger and faster than themselves. We could not outrun the predators. We could not outfight them, so we learned to outthink them. Images of early human tool use appeared. We took rocks and made weapons. We took fire and made it a tool. We took plants and learned to cultivate them. We turned every aspect of our hostile world into an advantage. A Kellish officer spoke up. Other species use tools. We have technology. You have technology you developed over millions of years of gradual evolution, Amy corrected. Humans went from stone tools to nuclear weapons in 10,000 years. We did not have time for gradual evolution. Our world forced us to innovate or die. She brought up images of human warfare, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern conflicts, and we fought, not occasionally, constantly. Humans have been at war with other humans for our entire recorded history. Do you know why? No one answered. Amy provided it for them. Because our world gave us too many threats to develop a unified culture. Different regions had different challenges. Desert peoples learned different survival strategies than forest peoples. Island cultures developed differently than plains cultures. We were too spread out, too diverse, too busy surviving to unify. The display showed increasingly sophisticated weapons. So we fought each other. We developed tactics to defeat human opponents which are far more dangerous than defeating animal predators. Animals are predictable. Humans are not. We learned to anticipate, to deceive, to adapt our strategies mid-battle. A Torvan commander leaned forward. You speak of your savagery as if it is something to be proud of. Amy met his gaze. I speak of it so you understand what you awakened. Most species in this galaxy evolved on relatively stable worlds. They develop civilization through cooperation with their own kind. They fight wars over resources or territory, limited conflicts with clear objectives. She pulled up footage of Earth's world wars. Humans developed total war, not war for territory, not war for resources, war for survival, war for ideology, war for revenge. We learned to mobilize entire populations, to convert civilian industries to military production overnight, to sustain conflicts that lasted years or decades. The room had gone silent. Amy continued relentlessly. We bombed our own cities. We poisoned our own rivers. We created weapons capable of ending all life on our planet, and we built enough of them to do it multiple times over. Do you understand what that means? She leaned on the table. It means that humans are capable of absolute commitment to a cause. When we decide something must be destroyed, we do not stop until it is destroyed. When we decide an enemy must be defeated, we dedicate every resource to that defeat. There is no partial effort. There is no acceptable compromise. There is only total victory or total extinction. A younger Kellish officer, barely past adolescence, asked quietly, "But you stopped fighting each other. You unified. You joined the galactic community." Amy nodded. "We did, because we realized that our capacity for violence was going to destroy us unless we found another path. We chose peace. We chose diplomacy. We chose cooperation." Her voice hardened. "But choosing peace is not the same as being incapable of war. We remained ready because our history taught us that peace only lasts as long as everyone agrees to maintain it." She pulled up footage of Frontier's Edge. The Combine officers looked away, but Amy forced them to watch. "The Combine broke that peace. You did not attack our military. You did not strike at our government. You murdered children in their schools. You bombed hospitals. You targeted civilians to prove your strength." Tears ran down Amy's face, but her voice remained steady. "My sister lived on Frontier's Edge. Her daughter was 7 years old. She wanted to be a doctor. The Combine turned her into a statistic." The room was utterly silent now. Amy wiped her eyes and continued. "So now you see what humanity is. We are a species that survived the worst planet in this sector. We learned to fight because anything less meant extinction. We chose peace because we understood the cost of war. And when you forced us back into war, you discovered that we never forgot how to wage it." She deactivated the display. "The Combine thought humanity was weak because we negotiate. You mistook our preference for peace as an inability to fight. That was your fatal error." A Torvan admiral who had remained silent throughout finally spoke. "What happens now?" Amy looked at him with empty eyes. "Now you learn to live in a galaxy where humanity is no longer the peaceful species you can ignore. We will dismantle every Combine military system. We will ensure you never again have the capacity to threaten innocent lives. And we will make certain that every species in this galaxy understands what happens when you mistake restraint for weakness." She walked to the door, then paused. "We did not want this war. We wanted peace. Remember that when you rebuild. Remember that humanity gave you every chance to avoid this outcome. You chose violence. We simply responded in the language you chose to speak." The door closed behind her, leaving the Combine officers to contemplate the truth she had delivered. Humanity was not unique because they were stronger. They were unique because they had mastered survival on a world that tried to kill them every single day. And that mastery had created a species that could be the galaxy's greatest friend or its most terrible enemy. The Combine had chosen to make them an enemy. The supply convoy moved through neutral space, deliberately exposed and seemingly vulnerable. 18 human transport vessels carrying food, medical supplies, and ammunition to occupied Combine worlds. They traveled without heavy escort, just 4 frigate-class ships providing minimal protection. Braxis studied the intelligence reports with growing hope. This was the opportunity the Combine needed. 3 months of systematic defeat had left them desperate. Every engagement with human forces ended the same way. Infrastructure destroyed, industry dismantled, military capacity neutralized. The Combine was bleeding out slowly, precisely, methodically. But a supply convoy presented a different target. Civilians. Soft logistics. Exactly the kind of strike that could restore Combine morale and prove that humanity was not invincible. "Gather the fleet," Braxis ordered. "Every operational vessel. We will crush this convoy and show the galaxy that the Combine still has teeth." The remaining Combine military assembled in secret, avoiding human patrol routes. Nearly 300 warships, representing the largest concentration of force they had managed since the war began. They plotted an intercept course carefully, timing their attack for maximum effect. Commander Lewis Grant watched the Combine fleet approach on his tactical display. He sat in the command center of a station hidden in a nearby asteroid field, surrounded by the actual human response force. Two full battle groups, over 600 vessels, waiting in complete silence. They took the bait, his tactical officer reported. Lewis nodded. Of course they did. They are desperate, and desperate opponents make predictable choices. The trap had been designed by human psychologists working with military strategists. They had studied Combine culture extensively, reading their literature, their military histories, their cultural texts. They understood how the Combine thought, how they viewed warfare, what they valued. The Combine prized direct confrontation. They valued courage in battle. Their entire military doctrine centered on decisive engagement and overwhelming force. So humanity gave them exactly what they expected: a vulnerable target and an opportunity for a heroic victory. The Combine fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel directly on top of the convoy. Braxis himself led the assault, his flagship weapons already charging. This would be a slaughter, a message to humanity that the Combine could still strike back. His sensors registered the convoy vessels. Then they registered something else: energy signatures appearing all around them. Hundreds of them. The human battle groups decloaked simultaneously, surrounding the Combine fleet in a perfect sphere. Lewis Grant transmitted on all frequencies. Combined vessels, you are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any act of aggression will be met with overwhelming force. For a moment there was silence. Then Braxis laughed bitterly over the open channel. Of course it was a trap. You studied us. You knew we would come. We knew, Lewis confirmed. Your culture prizes courage over caution. Your military doctrine favors aggression over defense. Your desperation would drive you to attempt exactly this kind of strike. We have been reading your strategic texts for months, Commander. We know how you think. Then fire, Braxis said wearily. Finish it. No, Lewis replied. We are offering you a chance to surrender. Your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. Your ships will be seized, but your people will live. And if we refuse? Lewis's voice turned cold. Then we demonstrate the difference between Combine tactics and human ones. You bomb civilians to prove your strength. We destroy military forces to eliminate threats. Choose quickly, Commander. My patience has limits. The Combine fleet remained motionless, trapped with no possibility of escape. One by one, their vessels powered down weapons. Braxis was the last to comply, his fingers hovering over the firing controls before finally shutting them down. The boarding process took hours. Human Marines secured each Combine vessel, cataloging weapons and equipment. Medical teams treated wounded Combine personnel. No one was harmed beyond what was necessary for security. Braxis found himself in a detention area, face to face with Lewis Grant. The human commander looked exhausted, older than his years. Why, Braxis asked, why spare us? We would not have shown you mercy. Lewis sat down heavily. That is precisely why we are sparing you, because we are not you, because humanity learned something during our centuries of warfare that the Combine has not yet understood. What lesson is that? That mercy is not weakness, Lewis said quietly. That showing restraint after victory is harder than showing cruelty. That the goal of war should be lasting peace, not endless revenge. He pulled up a data tablet, showing footage from the battle. We could have destroyed your fleet in the first 30 seconds. Our weapons were locked on before you ever arrived. We could have killed every single one of you and claimed self-defense. Braxis watched the tactical analysis, seeing how completely outmaneuvered the Combine had been. Then, why did you not? Because you are not our enemy anymore, Commander. The Combine is our enemy. The organization that authorized attacking Frontier's Edge is our enemy. Individual Torvin, Kellish, and all the other species. They are just people who made bad choices under bad leadership. Lewis deactivated the tablet. We want to dismantle the Combine's ability to wage aggressive war. We do not want to exterminate entire species. There is a difference. The galaxy will see this as weakness, Braxis warned. They will think you lack the will to finish what you started. Let them think that, Lewis replied. We know the truth. Humanity has the capacity for terrible violence. We proved that over 3 months of systematic military victory, but we also have the capacity for restraint, for mercy, for building something better than endless cycles of revenge. He stood to leave, then paused. The Combine attacked Frontier's Edge because you thought it would make us afraid. Instead, it made us determined. You thought we would surrender. Instead, we showed you what humanity is capable of when we commit to a goal. And now we are showing you something equally important, that even in victory, even with every reason for revenge, we can choose a better path. Braxis sat alone in his cell after Lewis departed. The Combine fleet was destroyed, not through battle but through capture. 60% of their remaining military force neutralized in a single engagement, and the humans had done it without firing a shot. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread quickly. The neutral powers of the Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Some called for intervention, demanding humanity halt its campaign. Others remained silent, watching carefully. Ambassador David Ross addressed them all with footage of Frontier's Edge, the children's hospital, the schools, the residential districts. You remained silent when the Combine murdered our families. Your silence was complicity. You do not get to demand mercy for the Combine now that they are losing. A representative from a minor species stood, but the cycle of violence must end somewhere. David's expression was carved from stone. It will end when we are satisfied that the Combine will never again threaten innocent lives. Not before. We did not start this war. We will not end it prematurely simply because it makes you uncomfortable to watch. He transmitted a final message to all assembled species. Any government that provided weapons, resources, or support to the Combine has 48 hours to cut all ties. After that, humanity will consider you accomplices to war crimes. We will not attack you militarily. We will destroy you economically. The threat was clear. Humanity controlled enough trade routes and resources to cripple any economy they chose. The galactic financial system began to shake as species scrambled to distance themselves from the Combine. Braxis, watching reports from his detention cell, finally understood. The humans were not fighting a military campaign. They were fighting a systematic dismantlement of everything that allowed the Combine to exist. And they were doing it with a precision that terrified him more than any weapon could. 6 months after the Frontier's Edge massacre, Ambassador David Ross returned to the Galactic Council chambers. The same curved table, the same holographic displays, but everything else had changed. The Combine delegation was absent. In their place sat representatives from former Combine species, each now operating independently. The Torvan ambassador avoided eye contact. The Kellish representative seemed diminished, her crystalline body lacking its former luster. David took his position, standing where he had stood when Braxis threatened his people. The memory of that day remained sharp and painful. His daughter's voice on the final transmission, his grandson's laughter cut short forever. The council chairman, an elderly being from a species that had remained neutral throughout the conflict, spoke first. Ambassador Ross, the council has reviewed the terms of the Combine dissolution. They are comprehensive. They are necessary, David replied. Some members question whether they are too harsh, the chairman continued carefully. The restrictions on military development, the economic oversight, the presence of human observers on former Combine worlds. David pulled up holographic footage, not of battles, not of destroyed fleets. Instead, he showed the aftermath of Frontier's Edge, rescue workers pulling bodies from rubble, a mother searching through debris for her child, the memorial service where 40,000 names were read aloud. These people did not get a say in whether the Combine's terms were too harsh, David said quietly. They did not get negotiations or oversight committees. They got bombs dropped on their schools. The chamber fell silent. David continued, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. Humanity tried peace. We sent diplomats instead of warships. We offered trade instead of tribute. We extended friendship to species that most of you barely acknowledged. And when threatened, we negotiated in good faith. He gestured to where Braxis had once stood. The Combine responded by slaughtering children to prove a point, not because those children were a military threat, not because Frontier's Edge held strategic value. They killed innocents to demonstrate that they could, to make us afraid. A representative from a minor species spoke up. But the war is over, Ambassador. The Combine is dissolved. When does the punishment end? David turned to face her directly. This is not punishment. This is prevention. The terms we have imposed on former Combine worlds ensure they cannot rebuild military forces capable of aggressive warfare. They can defend themselves. They can maintain system security. They cannot threaten their neighbors. Some call it occupation, another voice said. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night, David replied. Humanity calls it making certain we never have to fight this war again. Our observers are not there to oppress. They are there to verify compliance, to ensure that weapons factories stay converted to civilian production, to confirm that military academies teach defense, not conquest. The council chairman attempted to mediate, perhaps if humanity showed more flexibility in the terms. David's expression hardened. Flexibility? You mean like the flexibility we showed in offering the Combine peaceful terms before the war, the flexibility that got 40,000 of my people killed? He activated another display, this one showing human military doctrine. Let me explain something about humanity that the Combine learned too late. We do not fight wars the way most species do. You fight for territory or resources. You fight until one side gains advantage, then you negotiate. Humans fight differently, David continued. When we commit to war, we commit absolutely. We do not fight for advantage. We fight until the threat is permanently eliminated. We learned this through 10,000 years of warfare on our homeworld. Partial victories lead to future conflicts. Total victories lead to lasting peace. A Quiller observer, Talon himself, spoke for the first time. I have studied human history extensively since this conflict began. Ambassador Ross speaks truth. Humanity's most devastating wars ended not with negotiated settlements, but with unconditional surrender and complete reformation of defeated powers. David nodded toward him. Thank you, Observer Talon. You understand what many here do not. The terms we have imposed on the former Combine are based on lessons humanity learned the hard way. We defeated enemies completely, then helped them rebuild as peaceful partners. It worked on Earth. It will work here. And if it does not, the chairman asked. Then we maintain the oversight until it does, David said simply. However long that takes, humanity is patient. We can wait decades or centuries if necessary. What we will not do is allow the Combine to rise again in 10 years and force us to fight this war a second time. He deactivated all displays and faced the council directly. I know what many of you think. You see humanity as harsh, unforgiving, too focused on security at the expense of reconciliation. But answer me this. Where were you when the Combine attacked Frontier's Edge? The question hung in the air. No one responded. David continued. You were silent. You offered no aid, no condemnation, no intervention. You watched 40,000 civilians die and did nothing. So forgive me if humanity does not particularly care about your opinions on how we ensure it never happens again. a representative from a major power, one that had remained neutral but watched the conflict closely, stood. What does humanity want, Ambassador? What is the end goal of all this? David considered the question carefully. We want what we have always wanted: peace, security, the ability to exist without constantly watching for threats. We want to return to our explorations, our research, our peaceful development. But we want to do so knowing that species like the Combine cannot rise up and threaten us whenever they feel bold. You want dominance, someone accused. We want safety, David corrected. There is a difference. Humanity does not seek to rule the galaxy. We have no interest in empire or conquest. We simply refuse to be victims ever again. He gathered his materials, preparing to leave. The terms stand. Former Combine worlds will rebuild under human oversight. Their economies will recover, their peoples will prosper, but they will do so without the capacity for aggressive warfare. In 20 years, perhaps 50, when new generations have grown up knowing only peace, when the leaders who authorized Frontier's Edge are gone, then we can discuss relaxing restrictions. Until then, David said, humanity maintains our presence, not as conquerors, not as overlords, but as guarantors of peace. We did not want this role. You gave it to us by remaining silent when action was needed. He walked to the door, then paused one final time. Let this be a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity prefers diplomacy. We value peace. We seek cooperation. But when you force us into war, when you attack our families, when you mistake our patience for weakness, you will discover why we spent millennia perfecting the art of conflict. We do not fight for glory or conquest, David finished. We fight to ensure we never have to fight again. Remember that. The door closed behind him, leaving the council in uncomfortable silence. The galaxy had learned a profound truth. Humanity was not the gentle species they had assumed. They were a predator that had chosen to be peaceful. But when peace was no longer an option, they were very, very good at war. And more importantly, they were equally good at ensuring that defeated enemies never rose to threaten them again. Observer Talon began writing his final report that evening. He titled it, "The Paradox of Human Warfare: How Humanity's Capacity for Violence Serves the Cause of Peace." It would become required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. Braxis, released from detention but stripped of rank and authority, read Talon's report in exile. He finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He had awakened a species that could have been the galaxy's greatest ally. Instead, he had made them its most vigilant guardian. Earth returned to normal slowly. The factories converted back to civilian production. The fleet stood down to peacetime status. But humanity would never forget. They had learned that peace was precious, that it required strength to maintain, and that sometimes the only way to ensure lasting peace was to make war so terrible that no one dared start it again. David Ross looked out at Earth from his apartment window that night. Somewhere out there, his daughter's name was carved on a memorial. His grandson would never grow up. 40,000 lives had been stolen by beings who thought humanity was weak. Those beings had learned otherwise, and the galaxy would remember the lesson for generations to come. You could negotiate with humanity. You could trade with humanity. You could even disagree with humanity. But you did not attack human families. That line, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. The lights of Earth glowed in the darkness, peaceful once more. But humanity would remain ready, always.